Hey, Sean, you hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you, Thad.
Just real quick, any injuries from yesterday that popped up today?
No, should be in good shape here.
You talked yesterday about wanting to make the point that the defense was Leslie Frazier's defense. Can you expand on that a little bit and talk about what things Leslie or maybe any of the other defensive assistants have done to make it more their defense than when they first joined you and probably were working more of something that you wanted to install?
Yeah, I just think that as a head coach, because when I was a defensive coordinator, I was around that relationship scenario a little bit where you got a head coach who's a defensive guy, and so I wanted to make it clear that Leslie runs the defense, and we've got a great staff with the guys that are on the defensive staff. Those guys work well together, and they just do a really good job of open communication, collaboration, some tough conversations. I can promise you, week to week, day to day. But it's all trying to get us to the right answer.
When you have a staff like that you trust and believe in, and obviously has put together the results as well as they have, how much better does it make you a head coach? Because that's not something you necessarily have to have your fingers in as much.
Yeah, I mean, that tends to free me up sometimes where I can do some other things that I need to do as a head coach of this football team, and that's important.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Hey, Sean, what do you want the identity of this offense to be as you guys head into the playoffs?
I think, man, that's a deep question. I would like to start by, being fundamentally sound, taking care of the football. We did a good job of taking care of the football yesterday, and then again, as I said before, being a two-dimensional threat is, I think, the best type of threat you can be.
And what have you liked about the offense in the last 4 weeks? You guys finish out as the second best rushing offense here in the last 4 games of the regular season.
Yeah, getting Devin going, I think, has been good for our offense, and I think the line enjoys that when they can come off the ball and move their feet and get their pads down. Most linemen like that, so that's been good to watch, and I think the receivers have done a good job, and tight ends as well in the blocking part of that.
Thanks.
Sure.
Hi, Sean. Adam Benini. We all know division games are tough just because of the familiarity between the teams and that sort of thing. But talk to me about the challenge, I guess, of going against these guys now for a third time this year, really in such close proximity. And in particular, this opponent with that head coach and their ability to tactically change things up.
Yeah, they're incredible that way, and how they can change things up, and what Coach Belichick does to stay a step ahead. So we obviously have our work cut out for us, and it's a short week in some regards here. So we've got to get ourselves ready to go in a short amount of time, and so that'll be the challenge for us.
What are your takeaways from the December 26th win in Foxborough?
I thought it was offensively we were able to move the ball at times, and we took care of the football, and I think we played complementary football enough to get a win against this team, which is very difficult to do.
How much was that? I don't know, a springboard. It was part of a 4-game run for you guys in response to some previous losses, but how much of a springboard was that, given the history and given the nature of the division and everything that kind of went into that?
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to win, Adam. You know that, and build some confidence and get some momentum going down the stretch like we did.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Hey, Sean, it's Jackson over in Rochester. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Not bad, thanks. Along the lines of that, you feel there's maybe a little more excitement going against the Patriots here with the rivalry and the intensity that you guys always have when playing each other?
Do I feel like there's a little more
excitement intensity or excitement going against them as maybe opposed to a team outside of the division?
Well, we have a great amount of respect for them, what they've done over the years and championships they've won. So I think, at the end of the day, it's a tournament at this point, and you play who they tell you to play and when they tell you to play and where they tell you to play. So it'll be a big challenge for us.
What's impressed you the most about Singletary of late?
Just his determination, I think. Really, he's the stick-to-itiveness he's had all season long, and then to come into form, or at least to reap the dividends of his hard work through the course of the season. I think that's I'm sure for him got to be rewarding, and then for our football team as well.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah.
Hi, Sean. It's Jay with the Buffalo News. First off, do you have any updates on Emmanuel and F.A.? Do you know their practice status for this week?
We'll just take it one day at a time. They're both progressing, but we'll see where it leads them.
Okay. And then secondly, you're at the time of the year now into the end of the regular season where you hear reports about interview requests. There are a couple in regards to Leslie and Joe today. First of all, I guess, can you confirm those? And second of all, how do you balance wanting those things to happen for your staff and being excited about those opportunities with your staff focusing on the task at hand when the games matter more so now than before?
Yeah. This is a time of year for things like that. And, some of the organizations out there that made some moves, whether during the year or today, are looking to get going and find their head coach. With respect to Joe, I won't get into Joe's situation. I'll get into Leslie's situation because it's on my staff here. Nothing official yet at this point, but would certainly be very happy for Leslie if he had that opportunity. I think he's earned it.
Excellent. Thanks, Sean. Have a good week.
You too.
Hey, Coach. I just wanted to follow up on something that Josh had mentioned after the game last night, because I was talking to him about Stephon getting involved early and often, and he was a busy receiver in the first half for your offense. He kind of hinted at wanting to kind of diversify the offense, spread the ball around, maybe take some of the receiving burden off of Stephon and maybe to a lesser extent Cole from what it was last year. How much does your sports science perhaps go into those kinds of decisions to diversify your offense, maybe reduce the load on a couple of guys so you're perhaps healthier with some of your important players come the postseason? Because those two guys were two nicked up guys for you in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, that's one of the things we learned coming out of last season. Really we had talked about it, Chris, down the stretch and having those guys banged up, nicked up down the stretch as that came to be wasn't ideal. So, this year we've tried to put a schedule in place that helps those guys get through the season, knowing how much we use those players, in particular the names that you mentioned, and so that they can be fresh and play, their best football down the stretch here.
And then is the secondary benefit opportunities for other guys to emerge? I mean, Dawson in year 3 emerges maybe because of that diversification that you did use. So it's almost like a secondary benefit while helping the initial reason for doing it in the first place.
Yeah, I could see why you'd say that. Yep.
Thanks.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, I was curious about, and I don't know how often this happens, but when you're deciding if you're going to go for it on certain 4th down situations, and Josh might come over to you and maybe share his thoughts on if he thinks you should be going for it or not. What are those conversations like, and how much do you take into account when you're deciding how he feels about a certain situation?
Yeah, I usually, if we have an opportunity to talk and catch up and communicate on the sideline there, we'll do that for sure. And I trust Josh, so I value his input and give him ownership of some things here. So that back and forth is important for us.
And then I was curious, when you look back on the first meeting you guys had with the Patriots, with the weather and everything that happened kind of out of your control in that game, when it comes to the weather circumstances. How much can you take from that game based on those factors? Like, do you have to consider the wind and all of that, or how do you kind of evaluate that first game?
Yeah, obviously the weather played a significant role in that game, I'm sure, for both teams. So you take what you can out of that game, and you evaluate it, and we'll see what the weather's like come Saturday night. No one really knows at this point, so it changes day by day, it seems like.
Thanks, Sean.
Sure.
Afternoon, Sean. Tyler Bass has finished the regular season with an 87.5 field goal percentage, and he made all of his PATs. With how consistent he's been with his kicks, how much confidence do you have in him to make a play in a big spot as we enter the postseason?
Yeah, I have a tremendous amount of confidence in Tyler. He's had a nice year, and the work that he's done with Reed and Matt has been outstanding in a lot of ways.
What does it say about him that he's been so consistent, even with all the wild weather that you've played through the season?
Yeah, that's we've had quite a bit of this wild weather, as you mentioned, Dante, and I just think it's where we live. It's where we play half of our games at least, and so you got to be wired in such a way that you can handle that and push through it. And I think he's done a really good job of that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Sean, your defense finished #1 in the league in the regular season in points allowed per game and yards allowed per game. I mean, just how much of an accomplishment is something like that? I know there's still a lot of more football ahead of you guys, but just to reflect on having to be able to do that, that's pretty hard to do in this league.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to be #1 in anything in this league. But I would to do it both in yards and points allowed is very challenging. So my hat goes off to those guys. Really proud of those guys and the work that they put in. It didn't come easy, and those guys have put in a tremendous amount of work, the coaches included. And then the offense on the other side is I think top 5 in terms of yards, 3rd in points, I think, give or take. So I might be wrong on that, but so anyway, but I get into numbers, but sometimes not too much. At the end of the day, you want to play your best football on the field.
And, this might be a better question for Leslie later about, team goals and stuff. When I asked Harrison and Ed about it in the locker room after, they kind of seemed surprised, almost like they didn't know they were there. And I was kind of surprised that, that would be maybe something that would be a goal that they knew was attainable. So how much of that goes on through the year of, hey, here's our goals, and we are close to achieving some of them as you go on?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of that side of the ball or specific side of the ball being, #1, I just think those are secondary to the bigger, larger team goals, Sal. And so I appreciate the fact that those guys put those team goals first, and the other goals, behind that. So it's a byproduct again of playing good ball and doing things right. So it's a stepping stone for us.
Thanks, Coach.
Coach Pat Freeman from The Beat 105.5. Congratulations on winning another division title.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, 2 guys that have been with you here from the beginning, how important have they been to you? I'm talking about Micah, Hyde, and Jordan Poyer. They seem to be just 2 stand-up guys that come to play each and every week, and they've been with you here from the beginning. How important have they been to this team and what you tried to bring into this organization?
Yeah, they've been outstanding. 2 very fine young men that just handle their business the right way. They're professional in their approach. They can flip the switch when they get on the field. They've done a great job of bringing people along in terms of their leadership and their influence on our football team, not just defensively, but on the offensive side and special teams as well. So, they've just done a fantastic job since they've been here. I guess this is year 5 now.
Thank you, Coach.
Sure.
Yes, good afternoon, Coach. George Radney, Challenger Community News. How are you doing this afternoon?
Good, George. How are you?
Pretty good. Just wondering, what has Ryan Bates brought to your offensive line? It seems ever since the New England game, the last New England game, the line seems to be a lot more physical and they seem to be coming off the ball a little bit more in unison with this lineup.
Yeah, I think Ryan's done a nice job. I thought there were moments in the game the other night where I thought the offensive line really took over, and so that was good to see. They'll have a big test in front of them with the defensive line from the Patriots this week. So it's important that they continue to work together, having that same lineup for now multiple weeks, I think would work in their favor.
Okay. And last question quickly, on the punter, what was the wind taking the ball before the punter received it? Was that part of the issues out there on Saturday night? Yeah, I mean, it's, even with the snap and the drop with the wind and how significant the wind was, the wind can move the snap and it can move even the drop. So those were tough conditions to punt in for Matt, but I'm super proud of how he worked through it. All right. Thank you very much. Good luck this coming Saturday.
Okay. Thank you, George.
Hey, Coach, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. You were talking a little bit earlier about your coaching against Belichick and how the Patriots prepare and the type of adjustments they can make. And I'm curious, how far in the weeds do you go in trying to anticipate what they're going to do versus trying to dictate what you want to do? And how do you kind of find that line without giving away, trade secrets?
Yeah, it's really hard because, they've been together so long with Coach Belichick and Josh and some of their staff that's been there for quite some time, Matt Patricia now again. And so, it's really hard to try and, anticipate where they're going next and their next move.
And, Belichick has talked in the past about, how he'll do whatever the game dictates. And that could be lining up 5 wide. It could be running the ball, except passing 3 times like he did the first time against you guys. How difficult does it make that in terms of the preparation? And does it lend a coach to want to dictate more than react?
I think it's got to be a healthy balance. Preparing your football team fundamentally and discipline-wise, and then trying to prepare your football team for what the opponent does, and then where the opponent might go next. And like I said, they've been together so long that they just have so many things at their disposal.
Just a question on Josh Allen too. Over the last 6 games, I thought his performance against the Patriots and Buffalo, the win, was exceptional. Has he taken another step forward in terms of being a superstar in the NFL, say over the last 6 games of the season?
Well, I think Josh continues to grow. Just like everyone else on our football team tries to grow every day. That's what we try and do here. That's really, I appreciate that about Josh and how he approaches his work every day.
Thanks, Coach.
Sure.
Hi, Sean. Know you had quite a bit of playoff experience before you got to Buffalo as a coordinator, but I'm curious what you'd say you've taken away or learned from your experience coaching in the playoffs as a head coach since you got in that chair with the Bills.
Well, I think it's a different chair, Matt, and there's a difference to being a head coach as opposed to being a defensive coordinator or an assistant. Obviously, the roles are different and the responsibilities are different because of that. So, I think every year you'll learn. If you're worth your salt, you'll learn. And you continue to grow, and you try and take good notes and use those notes the following year.
On a player level, how much do you think this late season experience and playoff experience that your guys have gotten kind of helped you in the last month here, when you guys turned things around, really probably second half of that Bucs game and on? How much do you think the experience you guys have at the player leadership level helped, steady the ship there?
Yeah, I mean, I count on those guys. I think the experience, there's not a whole lot of substitutions out there for experience, right? And so those guys have done a real nice job for us.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.